All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I will be your host for today. Now, each month, we have the pleasure of connecting with the Hearts in the Ice team up in Svalbard. So, Sunniva, Sorby, and her expedition partner, Hilde Strom, they've been in Svalbard for close to probably 2.5 months now, living in a remote travelers or trappers cabin called Bamsebu. In total, they're going to spend 9 months there, becoming the first women to do so on their own and overwinter um, while they're there. So along the way, they're going to be taking part in a lot of different citizen science projects. Each month, we'll connect with them for these live events. We'll talk to different experts from Norway and from around the world. Earlier, we had talked about ocean plastics. Right now, we're featuring and talking about global warming. So we're really excited to have them joining us live today. Now, it's very tricky when you're that far north to get a good internet connection. So we're able to talk to them via voice, via satellite phone, but video just doesn't cooperate from somewhere so far north, so remote, so away from connections to the internet and cell phone. But I have a little video clip that they recorded for us. So if you bear with me for just 1 second, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share that little video clip for us. So it's going to pop up now. There it is. I'm going to take it full screen, and then we're going to get a little greeting from Svalbard. So here we go.
Hey, November 12th, thank you all for being on the call today. Topic climate change, and thank you so much to Joe from Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants for hosting this, and to Kim for being the expert for lots of things that we're measuring up here until May of 2020.
We just had a polar bear visiting us 2 days ago, and yesterday we saw it hunted a reindeer. So things are changing in Arctic,
including the fact that right now it's about 0 degrees and we're expecting rain, which is not a good thing for the Arctic. So
see you soon. Bye.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to come back from that screen share. Hilde and Sunniva, already I can see that there's probably a little difference you're experiencing there with the long winter, the darkness of winter setting in. How you guys doing?
Yeah, great question. We're doing pretty good. We've had some exciting things going on up here, that's for certain. And we have just a couple hours of daylight now, and then soon we will sink into that long polar night that Hilde is quite familiar with.
All right, very cool. Well, last time we talked to you, you were able to tell us a little bit about the cabin, a little bit about how things have been going. So since we've talked last, what have you been up to?
Well, yeah, and I just want to start off by saying, because the topic this month, climate change, is really and it's such a broad topic, but it is the reason that Hilde started Hearts in the Ice. And, you know, Antarctica is a place that's changing too. It's where I have most of my experience, and most of Hilde's is up here. And the company that I took time off from to do this project for 9 months, polar latitude season down there.
Uh-oh, looks like we may have lost our satellite connection. So I'm just going to give them 1 second to jump back in. Let's see if they can get back in with us. And then Kim, we might have to jump and meet you a little bit earlier than expected if we've lost our satellite connection. But as I mentioned, that is the difficulty of connecting to the north is the curvature of the Earth gets pretty great. It's difficult for satellite signal to travel, especially for some of the satellite units that we use. And so satellite phone is really one of the only options that we can do to make this connection. So I'm going to give Sunniva and Hilde another moment to see if they can reconnect their satellite phone. And if they're not able to, we'll jump and get Kim to take over for a little bit. And then maybe we'll get to talk to Hilde and Sunniva a little bit later in the call. So let's just give them a couple seconds. While we do wait to introduce them, I'm going to introduce Kim Holmen. So he is the International Director of the Norwegian Polar Institute. He studies how climate interacts with the carbon cycle. His fieldwork experience has encompassed over 30 years of climate monitoring activities in Svalbard, as well as expeditions in Antarctica and Siberia. So if there's anyone who knows about the changing climate of the poles, it's definitely Kim. So Kim, we're so glad to have you joining us live today, and we're excited to learn a little bit more about you and some of the research you do.
Well, thank you for that. I live actually further north than Hilde and Sunniva, because I'm in the big town north where we actually have internet. I certainly am very happy to be here and see all the classrooms, and I hope I can share a little bit with you all. So if I press share now, and I'll see, gosh, what happened now?
All right, Kim, are you running off 2 monitors today?
Yes.
Okay. It just might change a little bit what option you have to pick for share screen. So when you click share, if it gives you the different options, see if there's one for either monitor or to share the whole desktop. That might work for us today.
Yeah, hold on. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Sharing the screen can be a little bit tricky sometimes with 2 monitors.
I'll do one more thing here. And down with that, and then we do share, and here we go.
That looks promising. There we go. We got it.
All right. So I come to you. I come to you from the Norwegian Polar Institute. I work up in the Arctic, and I have done that for a long time. I live on these islands north of Norway, and you can see Greenland here, and North America is over to the left. The Norwegian Polar Institute, Norway is the only country in the world that has land both in the north and the south. And we work from Svalbard over on the left here, but we also do a lot of work in Antarctica. I will show you some pictures. But just to reflect that, our logotype, the Norwegian Polar Institute, we have both poles as symbols for our work. We work looking at ice. Here are some of my students working, looking at ice. We look at polar bears and how they survive in the changing climate. And we capture polar bears not to hunt them, but to see how their health is. We look at birds. Here is from a bird cliff on Bear Island, where some of our people are looking at how the birds are reacting to the changing climate. And we dive. Here is from Antarctica, diving under the ice to look at how the warm water is melting the ice from beneath. And we drill in the ice to look at how the snow has changed through the ages, and here are some penguins watching the work. Working in the Arctic and the Antarctic is dangerous business. Here is one of our vehicles trying to cross a glacier, and you can see the dramatic backdrop here with the hole where that could swallow the whole truck. We already heard about the night up here, and it's already very dark from only 2 or 3 hours in the day. So here is our research ship out in the ice in the middle of the winter, just to show what kind of difficulties we have. Here are some other people working on ice cores, drilling into the ice to learn about climate over time. And in our work, we are always working with environment. The temperature of the planet is changing, and this in blue here is cold and orange red is warm. In the 1930s, the Arctic warmed up, but then it cooled off again. But if you look at the color of the Earth as we approach the present time, I do believe that you see what I see, that the whole planet is changing very much. And if you look carefully, the top, the reddest part is the Arctic. Continents warm more than oceans, but the reddest of all is the Arctic. And that is why I came here to study where it is happening the most. And of course, that is also what Sunniva and Hilde are experiencing. This plot shows you a view from a mountain outside of here. If you look carefully where I'm pointing this, there is a mountain in the background 4 times. And if you rest your eyes to the left, to the right, or in the middle, you can see that over the years here, all the glaciers are moving back. We are in a landscape that is changing very quickly, and that influences us all. I hope this gives you a little bit of insight into what we are doing up here in Svalbard scientifically. I want, as my final picture, to show you this fella. Is resting on ice on the ocean, but nowadays there is no ice in this place. The walrus has to go to other places in order to rest. So it shows the big changes that we are experiencing. So with that, I hope we can share and discuss for the next couple of minutes.
All right, Kim, thank you so much for sharing that little presentation with us. I love that map that you share. I think that map really shows a good visualization just how much the temperature of our planet has changed over time, and how, you know, you saw that warming in the poles first, because the poles do warm quicker, and then you saw it kind of spread throughout the planet. So, you know, it's hard to deny when you see evidence like that and so clearly how the temperature has changed on our planet over the last several decades, even further back. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Well, thank you. And I hope it kindles interesting questions.
All right. So I just want to check in. I think Sunniva and Hilde are back. Ladies, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry about that, you guys. I don't know what you caught of what I was sharing, but I'll just end, and then I want to hand it over to Hilde, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, no, I just thanks so much to Kim Holmen. He is what we call a real scientist and researcher, and Hilde and I are what you call citizen scientists. So all of you on the phone call have an opportunity to be a citizen scientist. It basically involves being passionately curious and following protocol and collecting data for researchers studying all sorts of things on our planet. And we're very, very happy and proud, actually, to be aligned with people like Kim and the Norwegian Polar Institute to stand a bit on the front line of observation and collecting data because, you know, this topic is front of mind for all of us. And I'm going to hand it over to Hilde, who will share some pretty relevant stuff about today. Yeah, hi, everyone. So today it's November the 12th, and it was supposed to be cold and wintry up here. We still do have snow, but it's 1+ degrees today, and we had some rain. So that's not very, well, that's not right for November, late from November. So climate change, as Kim said, shows up in many different ways. So we actually saw a polar bear that's sort of maybe trying to adapt to this climate and less ice. Because we saw 2 days ago a polar bear that was hunting a reindeer and killed and ate a reindeer, and they are supposed to eat seals on the ice. And maybe the same polar bear was here a night ago. So, you know, I was going outside, and there he was, just outside our front door. So we are now in a very, very small little trapper's hut, and it's a trapper's hut. That means that back in 1930, it was built for beluga hunting, and this is 20 square meters. Very, very small, so we're really vulnerable in here when we have polar bears outside. It's no running water, no electricity, and we have more, and we obviously don't have Netflix, we don't have any neighbors, no stores, so the neighbors are polar bears. And there are more polar bears, I think, still. I'm sure Kim can answer to that, but I think we still have more polar bears in the whole Svalbard archipelago than we are people here. So so I've been here now for 25 years, and I feel that this year is so super important for me to, as Sunniva said, to be a part of this project and be a citizen science and help scientists by collecting data for them to understand more what's going on.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty good evidence. You should be in the middle of a lot colder temperatures, but you're having 1 degree with some rain. So that's definitely not what you'd expect at that time of the year.
No, that's right. We'd rather have, we had some -15 the other day, and that's more how we like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the important things that you're doing as a citizen scientist out there. You're taking those observations and you can share those with us and tell us firsthand how you're seeing the Arctic changing. So it's really great what you're doing, and it's so great that we can share it with so many classrooms today.
Very exciting for us, sitting from our little perch here, to have all of the kids on the call today. So thanks again, Joe, for hosting this.
Yeah, no worries. Well, we have a big group of classrooms joining us today. We have over a dozen classrooms online. We have our 7 classrooms on camera with us. I'm going to give some shout outs to some of the online classrooms. We've got a grade 9 science school in Nova Scotia. We've got a group in Hoover, Alabama. We've got another group in Kawartha. Looks like another group joining us in Pennsylvania, grade 6s. So another group in Newfoundland. So we have a lot of different classrooms joining us. And Kim and Hilde, if you're ready, let's get to some of their questions.
Perfect.
All right. Well, boys and girls, as I start to introduce your classrooms, just remember that anything's fair game. If you want to ask Kim a question about climate change and his research, if you want to ask a question directed towards Hilde and Sunniva, living in the trapper's cabin and what things have been like and the project that they're working on, it's all good. So let's start meeting some of our classes. So the first class we're going to meet, let's go to San Antonio, Texas. They were just telling me that they're having colder weather than usual. So let me turn their microphone on with Mrs. Meineke. Some grade 3 class is hanging out. Let's get that on. How are we doing, Texas?
Yay! Yay! This is Isabella, and Isabella wants to know.
Can you tell us about what you're gonna do in your projects? Can you tell us what you're gonna do in your projects?
Can you tell us more about your projects?
Yeah, absolutely. We have quite a few of them. We have 7 projects. This is Sunniva. We have 7 projects altogether. One of them involves us going out in our boat, even in the slush ice, wearing a suit that's a survival suit. And then we've got lots of clothes on. We go out in the boat and we collect a phytoplankton, which you can barely see, but a phytoplankton is responsible for about over 50% of the oxygen in the atmosphere, more than a rainforest. And we're collecting saltwater samples. And I'll just share the reason they think phytoplankton or they know phytoplankton. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're still there.
So phytoplankton is super important to all of us because as the glaciers melt and pour more fresh water into the ocean, phytoplankton don't thrive. They don't produce in as much a density as in salt water. So they think there's a huge correlation there with climate change and, fresh water coming into the ocean. So we're collecting samples. We send it back to Scripps Institute in La Jolla. We're also doing cloud measurements and observation for NASA. We're also studying the aurora for NASA. For Kim, we're doing wildlife observation, marine mammals, obviously polar bears, seals, reindeer, foxes, and we're also, as the ice comes in, we'll be doing a lot of sea ice observation and measuring how it's changing from early spring and on. Those are just a couple of the projects. There are more, but that might be, send us an email and ask us specific questions. We'll be happy to answer some emails later.
All right, so it sounds like you're keeping very busy, which is awesome. Lots of citizen science projects on the go. And you did mention your email address. So I'm going to share this address with the classes on YouTube in just a moment. I'm going to share it with our classes on camera as well. It's Hiti, so HITI .bamsebu@gmail.com. And you can send Hilde and Sunniva some questions directly whenever you want. And then I'll share that address with everybody. So let us jump to
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. We're going to go to Mrs. Rutkowski's group, some 3rd and 4th graders hanging out in Boulder, Colorado. Let me get their microphone on. Hey, Colorado, how are you?
This is for Kim.
Woo-hoo!
Hey.
Why is the Arctic warming up more than other places in the world?
This is for Kim.
All right, let me turn Kim's mic on.
All right. Let's see if I can find some things. Well, one of the most important reasons is that the Arctic is white when it is covered with snow and ice. And if that ice or snow melts, it becomes dark. And then if there is sunlight coming in on the dark surface, it will warm faster. So if you start melting the snow and ice, which has happened, then it goes even faster because the dark surface, the ocean or the land without snow and ice, warms much faster. We are also seeing that the Gulf Stream is becoming warmer, and that water is coming up towards the Svalbard Islands and melting the ice of the Arctic. So the world oceans are warmer, and that is pushing into the Arctic.
All right, great question from our class in Colorado, and perfect use of those props, Kim, to show us how we need that ice reflecting that heat, not that dark ground absorbing it. Awesome. Okay, well, let us jump to another classroom. This time we're going to go to Mrs. Palmer's group. They're hanging out in Kalispell, Montana. Let's see if I can find that microphone. There it is. How are we doing, Montana?
Good.
We're good.
Yeah, good.
We're
Good.
Can I ask
Good.
a question?
Yep, go ahead. How many other animals in the Arctic have you seen than just polar bears and penguins?
Animals. What kind of animals we've seen around here? Well, we have polar foxes. They are so cute. Now during winter, they are usually they are completely white, very furry, look like maybe like a big cat. But we also down here at Bamsebu have some blue species of them. It's the same species, but they just have another color in their fur. So both blue and white polar foxes. And then we have a lot of reindeers, and they come so close to the hut, just almost into the door here. And we have a dog here, and they tease her. She's on a chain, and they come and they are so curious. And then we have belugas, not so big, but it's maybe 3 meters long whale. And then we have seals, bearded seals and ring seals that are really curious when we are out in the boat. And then we have some birds still. And polar bears, of course.
All right. Well, pretty exciting and maybe a little scary to hear about the polar bear visitor that you've had the last few nights. But I imagine they're beautiful animals to get to see. Oh,
they're so beautiful, so majestic, but also very dangerous. And this one, we wasn't aware of this one. Sunniva was going outside, and she just opened the door, and there he or she was, just right in front of her. But luckily, the polar bear was more scared than Sunniva were. So it took off out in the complete darkness, and we didn't see it again that same night. But it's, I have to tell you, it's one way to get your heart rate up.
I can imagine. Well, Hilde and Sunniva, while we have you on the phone, I've got a couple questions from a class on YouTube, and they're wondering about the food that you're eating and how you shower or go to the bathroom in such a small hut.
I will let Hilde talk about the food, and I'll talk about the shower because there is none. We don't shower. We haven't had a shower in, let's see, it's 57 days now, and we're here for 9 months. So what we do is we take a bucket, we melt some snow and ice and get some hot water, and then we use a bucket and we take a little bit of a sponge bath. So we both, as we're talking to you now, we have freshly washed hair and we're completely clean. We had a little bit of a sponge bath today. The hygiene part of us, our stay here is very, very important for our, emotional and mental well-being and sense of self. Super, super important. But no shower until May of 2020. And when it comes to food, we have provision for the whole complete 9 months that can keep us alive. And we also, of course, brought some chocolate and potatoes. We have dried food. We have salted food. We have some fresh eggs that we turn them around every week in order to keep them from rotting. So still we have eggs. And we have a wooden stove, so we will bake bread, and we have baked bread as well. So.
Okay, it looks like we just had the signal cut out on us again while they were talking about the food. So what I'm going to do, if your classroom, if I haven't been to your class yet, and your questions for Kim, give me a wave, and I'll come to your classroom. Okay, I see a class waving. Oh, Mr. Hearn's class is waving already, so let me turn their mic on. I believe you guys are hanging out with us in Squamish, BC today.
Yes, we are. Hi from Squamish. The students just want to say hello in the local First Nations language.
My name is Isla, and my name's.
And we have a question for Kim. Sahej, do you want to come on over? Nice and loud.
How do we cool the climate down if it gets too warm?
So how do we cool the climate down if it gets too warm? That's what some of the students are wondering.
Well, thank you. That's a very difficult and scary question even. The climate is warming up. Regardless of what we do, we will have some more warming during the next decade, 10 years, even if we stop all emissions. So we must adapt to what is happening. But of course, the most important thing is to decrease the emissions. Now, to tinker with climate, to make it colder, is a very challenging and scary option. There are some ideas of painting areas white. There are some ideas of having mirrors up in space. And there are also ideas of putting dirt into the atmosphere, particles that would shade the surface so less sunlight comes down. I think climate is extremely difficult to predict as it is, and to make such attempts is a very risky business. You're shouldering a huge responsibility that things will go right on the planet, and I don't think we are we don't have enough knowledge to be certain how it would fare out. There are some ideas, but the best thing we can do is to avoid getting so warm that it is a problem.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even if we stopped right now, Kim, cut down our emissions, there would still be some number of years where things would continue warming before things did change.
Yes. If we stopped all emissions today, it would still take 20 years before it stops warming.
All right. Big changes to be made. And that's why we're talking to this generation is you in those classrooms need to be the ones who are thinking about it and helping, correct some of the mistakes that past generations have made with our choices of taking care of the planet. All right. So I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Clark's fifth graders in Northern California. They're tuning in with us as well right now. I can see they just introduced themselves, and I can see we have Sunniva and Hilde back as well. So let's go to another classroom. This time we'll go to Mrs. Delpino's group, grade 4-5s, hanging out in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Let's get their microphone turned on. How are we doing, Thunder Bay?
Good.
All right.
So my question is, what happens if all the glaciers melt?
All right, I think that is for me. If all the glaciers melt, then sea level will rise. And it depends, the small glaciers on land give a few feet of water. If Greenland melts, which is a big glacier, you would get 7-8 meters of sea level rise. That is 25 feet or so. And if in Antarctica melts, you get 8 times as much as Greenland, which would drown much of Florida. It would have tremendous consequences for all of humankind. So, but even the small glaciers, the rests that the Montana folks might know of, but even those give a foot of water that is a lot. So it is important that the frozen water is preserved.
Yeah, we're definitely not ready for hundreds of millions of climate refugees living along the coast when they're no longer able to live there. So, and that's going to affect, you know, every continent, irregardless of the status of that continent, whether you're somewhere like Australia, Bangladesh, South America, Florida, North America. It's going to affect everyone. All right, let's grab another question from YouTube. So let's see here. All right, so this question here, Kim, I think it's directed in your direction. Can you tell us a little bit about past climate change in Earth's history?
All right. Climate has always changed, will always change. So that's very important to remember. We are talking very much about the climate change that humans are causing, but there have been a lot of changes. If you go back 15,000 years, we are in the middle of an ice age, much colder than presently. If you go back 150 million years, which is a very long time, the time of the dinosaurs, then it was much warmer and there was much more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than today. There are also periods of time further back in time when the entire Earth was covered with ice. So there have been very large changes before, and but the rate, how quickly it is happening now, is none of our records show anything like what we humans are doing to the planet during the last 100 years.
All right, perfect. So great questions coming in from online, and I just shared the email address for Hilde and Sunniva online, and I will share that directly with the classrooms because we're not going to be able to get to all the classrooms, but you can send questions anytime and they'll get them up at the Trapper's Cabin. So we need to visit another classroom. We need to turn on the mic in Mrs. Nemco's class, grade 8's in Brampton, Ontario. There it is. How are we doing, Brampton?
Good. Sorry.
So our question is, what impact do you hope to have on others?
All right, so Hilde and Sunniva, I think that's one that you can jump on.
Yeah, no, great question. Because we are only two people left in this little tiny cabin in the middle of what feels like sometimes nowhere but everywhere. Our whole project is about what we're doing right now. The fact that all of you are on this phone call, asking us questions, engaging with us, you know, being in the ring, being curious, learning from experts like Kim, and having, you know, really cool people like Joe willing to host and have, you know, dedicated your career, Joe, to sort of platform for engaging kids in different dialogues. This is the impact we want to have. We're living it. We're doing it. We also really hope to inspire. Hilde and I are you know, we're two women who have had our careers, with different careers, but our lives have been revolving around the outdoors and our natural world, our playground. And we really hope to inspire kids and adults, like people everywhere, to just get off the couch, you know, get outside, engage, be curious, learn a little bit about the little critters on the trees, and just be curious and learn about things you don't understand, and then maybe lend your voice to a conversation or get into politics or do something that is meaningful in this conversation that we're having right now. And it can be anything. Any element of yourself that feels completely passionately engaged in something is what we're hoping to do. So yes, we want to light a fire under people. And I think more importantly for Hilde and I, something very personal is we're looking a lot for hoping to build collaboration and stories around the kinds of things that we're collecting and what we're observing. But we can only do that with people like Kim Holmen and people like Joe on the call, like with you, Joe. So really, we're all about collaboration, engagement, inspiration, and then, you know, thinking forward about activating meaningful and thoughtful change.
All right, absolutely. It is so important. You know, you did mention, you know, you're two people up in a cabin in Svalbard, in some ways so far away, in some ways not that far. But it's a really good point to think about, is everybody working together. It's all the small actions that add up, that raise awareness, telling other people, those are what can have a huge, huge impact. So Hilde and Sunniva, thank you for what you're doing, braving the winter in Svalbard, hanging out with the polar bears, and connecting with classrooms all across North America.
Well, thanks for acknowledging that. We're doing this with our full hearts, and our hearts are, you know, we say hearts in the ice, but our hearts have melted around all the engagement and the collaboration that has grown out of what we are doing right now.
And Kim, same to you. You've spent, you know, over 30 years studying our climate, you know, going places few people travel to, and bringing back that important information. So thank you for everything you're doing as well.
Well, thank you. And I would like to say a few words to the last question, that I hope some of you out there get ideas, use your talents, get inspired. Everyone is important. Everyone has something they are good at. And if you use that, we can change many things to the better. You are all important.
All right, excellent. Sunniva and Hilde, we will see you again, I believe, on the 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So we hope more of your classrooms can come and join us, and we'll be talking a little bit more about food and some issues around that. So we're really excited for that.
Yeah, thank you. We too. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Joe.
All right. Well, boys and girls on YouTube, thanks for tuning in live and sending in questions. You have the email address. You can email directly to the cabin to get more of your questions answered. Classrooms who joined us on camera today, you guys were awesome as per usual. Thanks for the awesome questions. The last thing we'll do is I'm going to turn all the microphones on. Let's get nice and loud. Big goodbye and thank you to Kim, to Hilde, to Sunniva. Maybe the polar bear is close enough to hear you. I don't know. Here we go. Microphone's coming on.
All right.
Right, you guys are always so good at that. Thanks so much. One more time, thank you to our group joining us from Svalbard. You guys are awesome. Keep up the good work, and we look forward to our next connection. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye. Bye from Bamsebu. Bye.